Matthew Evans, a wealthy man who believed he had control over everything in life, was about to experience something that would shake his understanding of the world. As he sat in his silver Mercedes, stranded on a deserted road in the middle of nowhere, a strange feeling washed over him. This wasn't just about a flat tire. Something was different about today. He could feel it in the heavy air, as if fate had led him to this very moment. His usual life of luxury and privilege seemed distant as he glanced at his phone. No signal, no help. And then in the distance, he noticed a lone figure walking toward him. Who could be out here in the middle of nowhere? Why did it feel like this meeting was meant to happen? Matthew Evans, a man of wealth in his late 70s, sat alone in his silver Mercedes, tapping his thumb on the steering wheel. The air conditioning barely kept the oppressive Kentucky heat at bay. Matthew, having retired from a successful career in finance, was used to life running smoothly. But today, stranded with a flat tire in the middle of nowhere, he felt out of his element. Frustrated after several failed attempts to call for help due to no signal, he let out a sigh. Just then, he noticed a figure approaching. A young boy, no older than 13, in a faded t-shirt and worn-out sneakers, walking with purpose. The boy gave Matthew a calm, confident nod. "Got a flat?" "Yes, seems I'm stuck without a signal," Matthew replied. The boy smiled faintly. "I can help. My grandpa taught me how to change a tire." Without waiting for a response, the boy knelt by the car and got to work. His hands moved quickly, with skill and precision, surprising Matthew. When the job was done, Matthew reached into his wallet, pulling out cash. "Here, take this." But the boy waved it off. "No thanks, sir. Just glad to help." Matthew was left standing there, stunned, as the boy disappeared down the road. The encounter left him feeling oddly unsettled. Why had this boy, who had so little, refused anything in return? That night, alone in his mansion, surrounded by luxury, Matthew couldn't stop thinking about the boy. In all his life, he never met anyone who didn't expect something in return. The boy's simple act of kindness felt alien to him. The next day, curiosity gnawing at him, Matthew drove back to the same road, asking around in nearby towns. After hours of searching, a cafe owner finally gave him a clue. "That sounds like Elijah. He's always helping folks around here." Following directions, Matthew arrived at a small, weathered house in Harlan. He hesitated at the front door, unsure of what to say, when a woman in her early 40s answered. Her tired but sharp eyes met his. "I'm sorry to bother you," Matthew began. "Your son, Elijah, he helped me with a flat tire yesterday." Her face softened. "That sounds like my Elijah. He's always helping strangers. He wouldn't accept anything in return." "I just wanted to thank him properly," Matthew said. She smiled gently and invited him inside. "He's out back. You can wait if you'd like." Matthew stepped inside the modest home, noting the well-kept yet worn furniture and family photos. It felt different from his own house, filled with expensive art, but devoid of warmth. There was a certain life here, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. He followed Elijah's mother to the backyard, where the boy was fixing a fence. Elijah looked up, surprised. "Hey, mister, what brings you here?" "I wanted to thank you again," Matthew replied. "I couldn't stop thinking about how you helped me." Elijah shrugged, smiling. It wasn't a big deal, but to Matthew, it was. He felt compelled to do something in return. As they stood in silence for a moment, Matthew finally said, "People don't usually help without expecting something." Elijah, confused by the comment, replied, "If someone needs help and I can do it, why wouldn't I?" Matthew was struck by the simplicity of Elijah's words. He glanced around. The fence was patched together and the yard was worn. Yet, despite their lack of material wealth, Elijah's family seemed rich in spirit. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," Matthew said, genuinely impressed. "Your mother must be proud. She works hard." I just try to help where I can, Elijah responded, smiling. Matthew reflected on his own childhood, realizing how far he'd strayed from the values he was raised with. He wanted to give back to this family that had reminded him of something he'd lost along the way. "I'd like to do something for you and your family," Matthew offered. Elijah straightened, cautious. "We're okay. We don't need anything." "It's not about needing," Matthew said. "It's about doing what's right." Before Elijah could respond, his mother called from the porch, inviting them both to lunch. Matthew, unused to such casual hospitality, hesitated but accepted. The kitchen smelled of freshly baked bread and roasted vegetables. The table was small, the chairs mismatched, but everything was arranged with care. As they ate, Matthew listened intently to their stories. Elijah's dream of becoming an engineer and the mother's pride in their community. Despite his wealth, Matthew realized that this simple meal and heartfelt conversation meant more than any expensive dinner he'd had in years. The warmth and connection in this home filled a void he hadn't acknowledged before. As they finished, Matthew turned to Elijah's mother. "You've done a remarkable job raising him," he said. "He's got more heart than anyone I know." She smiled, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you. We've had our struggles, but we've learned to appreciate what we have." Matthew left their home that afternoon with a clear sense of purpose. Driving back to his estate, he knew he wanted to help this family, not out of charity, but to honor the kindness Elijah had shown him. They deserved more than patched fences. They deserved the stability and opportunities they had worked so hard for. Matthew recognized the strength Elijah and his mother showed every day. The next morning, he made a few calls, reaching out to old colleagues and contractors. Within days, trucks and workers arrived at Elijah's home. Elijah's mother stood in disbelief. "You didn't have to do this," she said, her voice shaking. Matthew's response was simple yet sincere. "You've done more than manage. You gave me something I didn't know I was missing. Let me give back." Elijah watched silently, processing the transformation happening around him. Matthew knelt slightly to meet his gaze. "You showed me that helping others isn't about money. It's about showing up when it counts. Now, it's my turn." Over the next few weeks, the house transformed. The porch was rebuilt, the roof repaired, and the old swing set replaced with a new one. Inside, fresh paint, polished floors, and a remodeled kitchen breathed new life into the space. Elijah initially tried to help with the work, but Matthew insisted, "Your job is to enjoy being a kid." Still, Elijah couldn't resist sneaking outside, fascinated by the construction process. Joe, one of the workers, noticed Elijah's curiosity and invited him to help measure wood. Soon, Elijah was full of questions, his excitement infectious. Watching from a distance, Matthew felt a deep sense of pride. For the first time in years, he was doing something that mattered, something that wasn't about business or wealth, but about people. As the renovations neared completion, the family stood on the new porch, amazed. Elijah's mother turned to Matthew, her voice filled with emotion. "This isn't just a house. It's a home now. I don't know how to thank you." "You already have," Matthew replied softly. "You reminded me of what truly matters: family, connection, purpose. I'm the one who should be thanking you." The final day felt like a celebration. Neighbors stopped by to admire the changes and offer small tokens of appreciation: fresh bread, homemade jam, a potted plant. Elijah's laughter filled the yard as he proudly showed his friends the new swing set and rooms. Leaning against the sturdy porch railing, Matthew soaked in the scene. He hadn't felt such pure joy in years. Elijah's mother approached with a glass of iced tea, her smile warm. "You've given us more than just a home. You've given us hope." Matthew nodded, taking a sip. "I found something, too. For years, I chased things that didn't really matter: money, status. None of it compares to this." As the sun set, Elijah joined them on the porch, his expression serious. "Mr. Matthew, I've been thinking." I want to help people like you helped us. Matthew placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. You already have Elijah. Your kindness started all of this. Never lose that. They sat together in silence, watching the sky turn orange and gold, a deeper warmth filling the air, one that came from shared gratitude and newfound purpose. When it was time for Matthew to leave, Elijah and his mother walked him to his car, their smiles etched in his memory. As he drove away, Matthew realized this wasn't an ending. It was the start of something new for all of them. In the weeks that followed, Elijah's interest in construction grew into a passion. Matthew arranged for him to shadow the workers, and Elijah eagerly absorbed every bit of knowledge. For Matthew, visiting Harlan wasn't just a trip anymore. It felt like coming home. And for the first time in years, he was truly content, knowing that life's greatest rewards come not from what you have, but from what you give.